The mayor's race virtually has been underway since a year out before the June 5th primary. Carl DeMaio kicking it off. Everybody knew this was going to happen. Now the horse race is such that there's a tightly bunched pack. I don't know which polls to trust. Nobody really does, but it seems that the consensus is that DeMaio is the front runner and about a quarter of the electorate is undecided. John, let's start with you. Where do you think those votes are going to swing in the next 3 months?
Again, the big issue, of course, is pension 24 hours, and DeMaio has taken the lead on that. Keep in mind, the so-called cycle has changed. Nowadays, what the campaigns are gearing up for today as we speak is way before Election Day, and that's the absentee votes. That's every year that's been increasing as far as what an impact that's been. So they're targeting those voters first, and then they're going to worry about the get out the vote on Election Day.
Scott, how do you read the horse race at this point?
Well, the conventional wisdom is that Bob Filner will probably move on with Carl DeMaio as the second guy in the final election. But I don't think that's guaranteed at all, because it's assumed that because he's a Democrat that he'll get all the Democratic support or a good portion of it.
Has he assumed that?
Well, he did. But he just recently came out and said, look, I'm going to need to start really raising money. I'm going to need people to come to my aid because it's not guaranteed at all. He's starting to get nervous, I think. And that's at the same time that you see somebody like Nathan Fletcher really raising a lot of money, coming after environmentalists, even getting some labor union support. And then Bonnie DeMantis trying to really solidify her place as the sort of heir apparent to Mayor Jerry Sanders.
Let's circle back to Nathan Fletcher. Marine, cut, as far as he'd like to be considered, in the mold of a Pete Wilson, kind of a similar assembly background, wanting to be an executive.
Age.
Roughly the same age, exactly. And he is being mentored by Pete Wilson. We understand other high-level people who have held federal office. What do you think his chances are? Because it seems like maybe he's back in the pack, but coming around the bend and down the home stretch, does he have the kind of gas to take it at the end, at least to make the runoff?
He does have the kind of gas, to use your term, because you need two things in the campaign. You need to have a good message, and all four of the top contenders have a good message. And it's good for the electorate because they're different messages. But the second point that you need is you need the resources to get the message out. He has technically raised more money than the other candidates. Carl DeMaio has more cash on hand because it's in the bank.
Yeah, and much of it, his treasury, his private wealth.
And the reason why I don't think the campaign really has gotten underway, they're doing what they need to do, candidate forums and that type of thing, because with Carl DeMaio and Nathan Fletcher being the top fundraisers, here's what happens. They haven't spent their money yet. When you spend your money, if you spend it correctly, you go up and your opponents go down. But keep in mind, your opponent's doing the same thing. Once that $700,000, $800,000 kitty starts getting spent, then you'll be able to really see who's the clear front runner.
DeMantis is endorsed by Mayor Sanders. To what extent is that a gold standard endorsement now?
Well, she's the clearest candidate of them all who wants to sort of continue his footsteps in the sand, right? And so basically she wants it to be a referendum on him and how well he's done, and she believes that he should win that referendum. You know, she's also trying to branch out, and, John said that it was about pensions. She wants it to be about education. She keeps talking about local schools. She wants the mayor to play a bigger role in education, and if she can get the other candidates to argue about her points, I think she wins that. She hasn't been able to do that yet, and she's been kind of the middle smirking person between these sniping camps, particularly Carl DeMaio and Nathan Fletcher. They're starting to go after each other at debates and in rhetoric in the newspaper. And so, as they do that, she's trying to stay out of it, but she's going to have to raise her profile because it's just not a given that she's going to move on.
And John Filner, the Democrat, we've talked about you can't be complacent and take things for granted. However, he also has been reaching across an aisle. He's what's the term they've used? A bromance with Nathan Fletcher. It's almost like a set-up comedy team, and they bounce back and forth. I'm going to have you be my speechwriter. I'm going to have you in charge of the sports commission, that sort of thing. How's that going to play out?
Well, I don't think very well. I mean, it's been very entertaining in candidate forums. But as far as your term, as far as reaching across the aisle, I think the best one who's done that is Bonnie DeMantis, because with Filner being the only Democrat, she's gotten quite a few big-name Democrats to endorse her. As far as the point that was brought up earlier about was he complacent or has he changed, et cetera, perhaps this is unfair to use this analogy, but I use a famous quote by the Japanese admiral after Pearl Harbor that he feared they were awakening the sleeping giant. Bob Filner did say early on that he was guaranteed a spot in the runoff. wasn't really campaigning hard, and then all of a sudden some polls start saying that he wasn't in the top 2 spots. I think that awakened him, and now we have seen him fundraising and in appearance and being more of a campaigner. So I think it's very likely that he could get in one of those slots.
Scott, some quick closure on this discussion.
You have to remember that even though he is the major Democrat in the race, it doesn't say Democrat next to his name. He's going to have to get money and organization out to prove that he is the Democrat, and if you are a Democrat, you should come out and support him, and that's not guaranteed at all.
Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. John Dadian, Scott Lewis, and coming up next on Politically Speaking.